My family wants me to forgive my brother for stealing my identity, and now he's framing me for tax fraud so he doesn't go to jail and I take the fall instead. When I found out my brother Tom had stolen my identity, it felt like my world was collapsing. We'd always been close, or so I'd thought. But over the past few months, things started to feel off. Letters from banks I didn't recognize showed up in my mailbox, strange charges on my credit report, and calls from debt collectors who insisted I owed them money. I kept brushing it off, convinced it was a simple mistake that could be cleared up with a few calls. But every call only deepened the mystery. Then late one night, I finally got a breakthrough. I was scrolling through my online banking records, trying to make sense of everything, when I spotted a series of transfers, large monthly withdrawals to an account in Tom's name. I felt the blood drain from my face. My own brother had been siphoning money from my account, one transfer at a time, for over a year. The shock was suffocating. I called him immediately, my hands shaking as I held the phone. He answered on the second ring, his voice light, almost cheerful. "Hey Jenna, what's up?" he asked as if nothing was wrong. I cut right to the point. "Tom, why have you been taking money from my account? There are transfers to your name. I want the truth." There was a pause, a deep silence on the other end, before he finally sighed. "Look, Jenna, I didn't think you'd notice. I just needed some help, and I figured you'd understand." I was stunned. "Understand? Tom, you stole from me. That's not asking for help. You could have just come to me, but instead you lied. You've been lying for months." "Relax," he said, his voice still far too calm for what he'd done. "It's just money, and I was going to pay you back. I'm dealing with some tax issues and a bit of debt, but I'm handling it." The nerve of him, talking to me like I was overreacting to some trivial mistake. "What tax issues, Tom? You've used my name, my accounts. This isn't just a favor, it's fraud. Do you realize how serious this is?" He let out a short laugh. "Look, Jenna, I needed a way out, and I thought maybe you'd understand if you found out. We're family. Besides, it's not like they'll come after you." The conversation left me reeling. My own brother had committed identity theft, and somehow he expected me to overlook it, to brush it off as a simple favor. But that wasn't even the worst of it. Over the next few days, as I pieced together more details, the full scope of what he'd done came into focus. Tom had taken out loans in my name, opened credit cards, and worst of all, he filed his taxes under my social security number, effectively linking all of his financial mess to me. A few days later, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I got a letter from the IRS. My heart pounded as I opened it, and my worst fears were confirmed. They were auditing me for discrepancies in my reported income I had never earned, on accounts I had never opened. It was a tangled mess, and they were demanding answers. I felt sick. In a daze, I called Tom again. This time, I was shaking with anger. "You filed your taxes under my name," I demanded. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The IRS is auditing me. They think I'm responsible for your debts." He sounded defensive, as though I was the one causing problems. "Look, it's not as big a deal as you're making it. You just need to take the blame for a while. You don't have any priors, Jenna. They'll go easy on you. But if I go down for this, I could go to jail." I was speechless, the words catching in my throat. "So, you're framing me to keep yourself out of prison? You really expect me to take the fall for you?" "You're overreacting," he said, still dismissive. "It's just a little white lie. The family will understand, and I'll pay you back once this all blows over. Just tell the IRS it was a mistake and let them pin it on you. It'll work out better for everyone." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not only had he stolen my identity, but now he was actively trying to manipulate me into covering up his crimes, expecting me to go along with his insane plan just to protect him. And, as if on cue, my phone buzzed with messages from my parents. "Mom, honey, Tom told us everything. He's been through a lot. Please don't make this harder on him." "Dad, Jenna, think of the family. Tom didn't mean any harm, and he needs your help right now. He wouldn't survive prison. Just cooperate. We're all on his side." I felt the room spin, a mix of anger and disbelief washing over me. My own parents were siding with him, urging me to throw myself under the bus so that he wouldn't have to face the consequences of his actions. I sat there, holding my phone, the messages blurring as tears stung my eyes. I was on my own. No one in my family understood the gravity of what Tom had done, or if they did, they didn't care. They were more worried about him than the damage he'd done to me. As I sat there, my mind cleared and a quiet resolve settled over me. If they thought I'd sacrifice myself to protect Tom, they were wrong. He'd taken enough from me already, and I wasn't going to let him take any more. The next morning, I called an attorney, Elena Torres, who specialized in financial and identity theft cases. As I laid out the details of Tom's betrayal, she listened intently, her expression a mix of shock and determination. "Jenna," she began, her voice steady, "this is serious. Your brother has not only stolen your identity, but also committed a federal crime by involving the IRS. He's not only ruined your credit and finances, he's put you at risk of criminal liability." I nodded, my hands clenched in my lap. I know, but my family, they're pressuring me to cover for him, to just take the blame so he doesn't go to jail. They don't understand what this is doing to me. Elena sighed, her expression softening. "Unfortunately, some families can't grasp the gravity of this kind of betrayal. But you don't have to cover for him, Jenna. We can fight this, and we have options. First, we'll contact the IRS and open a case of identity theft. Once we've reported it, they'll investigate, which could shift the burden off you and onto the real culprit, your brother." The plan gave me a sense of relief. What happens to Tom if we prove he's the one behind it all? Elena's voice was calm but firm. "The IRS will pursue him directly. This could lead to criminal charges for him, possibly even jail time. I understand that's hard to think about, but he made these choices." Hearing it said so plainly made the reality sink in. My brother was going to face the full weight of his actions, and I'd be the one to set it in motion. It felt both liberating and terrifying. That evening, I returned home, only to find my mother waiting on my doorstep. Her face was tense, her mouth a thin line of worry. "Jenna, we need to talk," she said, stepping inside before I could respond. I closed the door, bracing myself. "What is it, Mom?" She looked at me, her expression pleading. "I know Tom made a mistake, but he's still your brother. He's scared, Jenna. Please don't turn this into something it doesn't have to be." I took a steadying breath, trying to keep my frustration in check. "Mom, Tom stole my identity, drained my accounts, and dragged me into his financial mess. The IRS is after me now, not him. He could ruin my life. Do you understand that?" She sighed, frustration creeping into her expression. "He's desperate. You know how much he's struggled lately. He just needs some help to get back on his feet. It's not fair to throw him to the wolves." "Throw him to the wolves," I repeated, incredulous. "Mum, he committed fraud. He framed me. If I don't act, I could go to jail. I could lose everything, and all to save him." Her face softened, and she reached for my hand. "I'm not saying it's right, Jenna, but he's family. Please just let this go. We'll support you. He'll pay you back, I promise." I pulled my hand back, my frustration boiling over. "You're asking me to risk my freedom, my entire future, to protect someone who's betrayed me. And you think it's okay because he's family?" Mom's eyes hardened, and I could see the shift from empathy to determination. "Fine, Jenna. If you're going to go down this road, just know that it will divide the family. You're putting your brother at risk, and for what? A little money." "A little money?" I felt a surge of anger. "Mom, it's more than that. This isn't just about the money. He tried to ruin me. He lied, he manipulated all of you, and he framed me to save himself. I won't just stand by." She shook her head, exasperated. "Then I don't know what to tell you. Just know this. If you go after Tom, you'll lose more than just him." With that she left, and I felt the full weight of her words settle on me. My family had drawn a line in the sand. I could either cover for Tom and let him walk free, or I could fight for myself and risk losing everyone I'd ever depended on. It was a devastating choice, but the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I couldn't sacrifice my own future for someone who had betrayed me so deeply. The next day, I went back to Elena's office, feeling resolute. I'm ready to move forward, I told her. Let's report the identity theft and make sure Tom faces the consequences. She nodded, her expression serious. Once we contact the IRS, things may move quickly. They'll start their investigation, and we'll need to gather as much evidence as we can to show it was Tom's doing. Do you have any records of his financial activity or messages where he discusses his involvement? I handed her a folder filled with the bank statements, screenshots of our text messages, and even the few emails he'd sent, attempting to justify his actions. Elena flipped through them, her face grim. This will help immensely. With this evidence, it'll be hard for him to shift the blame onto you. Later that evening, just as I was finally starting to relax, I received a call from Tom. Hesitating, I picked up, steeling myself for whatever he might say. "What are you doing, Jenna?" he demanded, his voice full of anger. "Mom told me you're pushing this forward, that you're getting lawyers involved. Are you seriously trying to ruin my life?" I took a steadying breath. "Tom, you already ruined mine. The IRS is auditing me because of you. My accounts are drained. I'm buried in debt I didn't create. And you expect me to just take the fall for you?" He scoffed. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We're family. Family doesn't do this to each other." "Exactly, Tom," I replied, my voice cold. "Family doesn't frame each other for federal crimes." He was silent for a moment, then his tone turned pleading. "Come on, Jenna, you're my sister. Please, don't make me face this alone. If you push this, I'll lose everything. You know I can't handle that. Just help me like you always have." His words stung, pulling at memories of times I'd stood by him, even when he'd made mistakes. But those memories were no match for the reality I was facing now. "I've done more than enough, Tom. I'm done covering for you." He hung up, and I sat there, a mix of anger and grief washing over me. I knew this would be the end of our relationship, that my decision would likely fracture our family. But I couldn't let myself be dragged down by his choices anymore. The next day, Elena and I submitted the identity theft report to the IRS. She reassured me that they'd launched their own investigation, which would likely lead them straight to Tom. I'd have to be prepared for more family backlash, more pleas and attempts to guilt me into backing down. But I knew I'd made the right choice. This was the first step toward rebuilding my life, free from his manipulation. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Tom would face justice, and I was finally taking control of my future. I wasn't just a victim of his betrayal, I was stronger than he'd ever realized. After submitting the identity theft report to the IRS, things moved faster than I'd anticipated. Within a week, I received an official notice confirming that an investigation had been opened. It was a relief to see progress, but it also meant I was officially crossing a line in my family's eyes, a line I knew would be nearly impossible to come back from. The backlash came swiftly. My phone buzzed non-stop with calls and messages from family members, each one angrier than the last. They called me selfish, heartless, accusing me of overreacting and betraying my own brother. It was as if they couldn't or wouldn't see the reality of what Tom had done. To them, he was just the lost soul of the family, someone who had made mistakes but didn't deserve to be abandoned over a misunderstanding. Then my parents asked to meet in person, claiming they just wanted to talk things through. Knowing I'd likely walk into a pressure-filled intervention, I reluctantly agreed, hoping that maybe somehow they'd listen if I laid out the facts in person. When I arrived at their house, my mother greeted me with a sad, almost pitying smile. My dad sat at the dining table, arms crossed, his face set in a hard line. Mom wasted no time, jumping right into her plea. "Jenna, honey, please, Tom's your brother. You know he's had a rough go of it. He made some mistakes, but do you really want to destroy his life over this?" I took a steadying breath, trying to keep my frustration in check. "Mom, he's been destroying my life for over a year. He's stolen my identity, emptied my accounts, and committed tax fraud in my name. I'm the one at risk of having my life ruined, and he doesn't even care." Dad shook his head, his tone cold. "Don't be dramatic, Jenna. He was in a tough spot, and you're his sister. Family supports each other, no matter what. No matter what, I repeated, incredulous. Even if it means going to jail for crimes I didn't commit. Even if it means drowning in debt he racked up without my knowledge. I'm his sister, but what does that make him if he's willing to throw me under the bus to save himself? Mom's voice grew softer, pleading. I know it sounds bad, but he just needs a chance to make things right. He'll pay you back, he's already promised us that. If you drop this investigation, he can start over, and we'll all help him. It's not worth tearing our family apart over a few mistakes. Their words stung, each one twisting deeper into my chest. They wanted me to carry the blame, to make myself the sacrifice so Tom wouldn't face the consequences. But I'd already made my choice, and I couldn't back down now, not after everything I'd gone through just to get here. I'm sorry, but no, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I'm not going to cover for him. He's been using me, lying to all of us, and he doesn't even feel guilty. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I won't let him take it all away because he made mistakes. This investigation is happening whether you support me or not. Dad's face twisted with anger. If you go through with this, Jenna, don't expect us to be there for you. You're choosing to cut off your own family over money, and that's something I never thought I'd see. Mom turned away, her expression heartbroken, as if I had been the one who'd betrayed them. Without another word, they left me standing alone in their living room, the message clear. They would support Tom, even if it meant turning their backs on me. Leaving their house, I felt a deep, hollow ache. I was officially on my own. The next morning, just as I was trying to focus on work and put my family's reaction out of my mind, a call came in from an unknown number. When I answered, Tom's voice filled my ear, tight with barely controlled anger. So you really went through with it, he spat, his words sharp. You actually reported me. Yes, Tom, I did, I said, steadying my voice. You crossed every line there is. You have to face what you've done. He let out a short, bitter laugh. You're unbelievable. I guess all that talk about family meant nothing to you. What, do you get some kind of thrill out of watching your own brother get torn apart? My anger flared. You're the one who betrayed me, Tom. You stole from me, used my identity, dragged my name into your mess, and now you're blaming me for not covering it up? Good luck keeping your precious little job when this all goes public, he sneered. You think the IRS will just forget about you? Even if they realize I'm the one who did it, it'll still follow you. Employers don't hire people with tax scandals, Jenna. So go ahead, take your moral stand, see where it gets you. The line went dead before I could respond, and I sat there, his words swirling in my mind. He was threatening to drag me down with him, no matter the cost, just to save himself. But beneath my anger, I felt something else, a deeper sense of determination. If Tom wanted a fight, I was ready. The following week, I had a meeting with an IRS agent, Agent Shaw, who was handling my case. Elena joined me, reassuring me that we were prepared and that the evidence we gathered would speak for itself. As we walked into the IRS office, I felt a sense of dread, but also a quiet resolve. This was my chance to clear my name. Agent Shaw reviewed the case file as I explained everything. How I discovered Tom's theft, his attempts to manipulate me into covering for him, and the family pressure to let it go. She listened carefully, nodding occasionally as I detailed every painful step of the ordeal. When I was done, she looked up, her expression serious. Ms. Thompson, it's clear that your brother has committed a significant fraud, not only against the government but against you personally. You're a victim in this, and our investigation will reflect that. We'll proceed with our audit to confirm he was the one responsible, and we'll pursue charges as appropriate. A wave of relief washed over me, though a lingering sadness remained. Tom had tried to ruin me, and my family had stood by his side, blaming me instead of him. But with the IRS backing, I felt a renewed strength. They would investigate the case thoroughly, and soon the truth would be undeniable. Over the next few weeks, the investigation unfolded, with Agent Shaw and her team digging through Tom's financial records, uncovering a web of hidden accounts and forged documents he'd used to cover his tracks. The evidence against him grew, making it clear that his actions were calculated, not impulsive. Meanwhile, my family's silence weighed heavily on me. Not a single call or message from them, as if I had ceased to exist. It hurt deeply, but I knew that standing up for myself had come with a price I was willing to pay. Finally, I received a call from Agent Shaw. "Ms. Thompson, I wanted you to know that we've completed our audit, and it's conclusive. Your brother will be facing charges for identity theft, tax fraud, and forgery. You're in the clear, and your record will be officially expunged from any association with his crimes." I took a shaky breath, relief flooding over me. "Thank you, Agent Shaw. I can't tell you what this means to me. You've been through a lot, Ms. Thompson. I hope this brings you some peace." After the call, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, gratitude, and a lingering sadness for the family I'd likely lost in the process. But I also felt a powerful sense of pride. I had stood up to Tom, to my parents, and to everyone who doubted me. I had protected myself when no one else would. In that moment, I realized that while my family's support had faltered, I had become stronger than I'd ever known. I was free from Tom's lies, free from his manipulation. And as I looked ahead, I knew that this hard-won freedom was worth every sacrifice. The day after the IRS confirmed Tom would face charges, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in months. The relief of knowing my name was clear was overwhelming, but the weight of my family's silence still lingered. Not a single message from Mom or Dad, not one call. Their absence felt like a wound I couldn't quite reach, a constant reminder that, in their eyes, I had betrayed them. But I reminded myself that I hadn't betrayed anyone. I had simply refused to be sacrificed. As the weeks went by, I settled into a new normal. Without the constant anxiety of Tom's threats and the IRS investigation, I finally had space to focus on my own life again. At work, I threw myself into new projects, channeling the pain and frustration into something productive. My friends, who'd been there through every agonizing moment, helped me find joy in the small things again, making sure I was surrounded by support. They'd watched me grapple with the betrayal, never once questioning my decision to protect myself. In them, I found the strength I'd once sought from my family. Then one evening, a familiar number flashed on my screen. It was Mom. My heart raced as I hesitated, torn between the urge to ignore it and the hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd finally understood. "Hello," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. She was quiet at first, and then with a sigh, she spoke. "Jenna, I don't know what to say. I can't believe it's come to this. Your brother is facing prison time, and I don't know if I can forgive you for that." Her words hit like a punch to the gut. "Mom, do you even understand what he did to me? He stole from me. He risked my freedom, my career, my entire life. And you're still defending him." "It's not about defending him," she said, her tone brittle. "It's about family, Jenna. Family forgives. Tom was wrong, I know that, but prison? How could you do this?" The frustration bubbled up. "Mom, I didn't do this, he did. He committed the crimes, and he's paying for it. I would have ended up in jail if I'd done what you wanted. Don't you see that?" She was silent for a moment, then her voice softened, and I could hear the strain in her words. "You're my daughter, Jenna. I just wish you found a way to keep the family together." I let her words settle, feeling a strange kind of finality. "I wanted that too, Mom. But Tom made his choice, and so did you and Dad. I had no choice but to protect myself." After a long silence, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Jenna. I just don't know how to fix this." "Maybe it's not my job to fix it, Mum." When the call ended, I felt a strange mix of sadness and closure. My family was broken, maybe beyond repair. But I realized that I didn't need their approval or their forgiveness. I had given myself what they wouldn't, my own sense of worth and the freedom to live my life without their expectations weighing me down. In the weeks that followed, the storm gradually faded. The news of Tom's impending charges became public, and the family finally saw him for what he was, a man who'd tried to sacrifice his sister to save himself. A few distant relatives reached out, expressing their shock and quiet support, even apologizing for ever doubting me. Little by little, I found a new balance. Without Tom's shadow looming over me, I felt lighter, as if I was finally free to breathe. One evening, my friend Melissa came over with a bottle of wine and a warm hug. We sat on my porch, watching the sunset, and she turned to me with a smile. "I'm so proud of you, Jenna. I know this has been hell, but you stood up for yourself. That takes more strength than most people have." I smiled back, finally able to believe her. "Thank you. I think I'm proud of myself too." Looking out at the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. Tom's actions had cost me my family, but they had also shown me the strength I didn't know I had. I wasn't just the person they'd expected me to be. I was resilient, capable of protecting myself, even when those I loved didn't. As the months went by, I continued to build a life filled with the people who'd stood by me. I started new hobbies, went on weekend trips with friends, and focused on a career that now felt like it was truly mine. Each day, I grew more certain that I'd made the right choice. I hadn't just saved myself from Tom's lies. I'd carved out a new path, one free from the weight of misplaced loyalty. For the first time, my life was my own, and with every step forward, I knew I was never going back.